What up, nerds? Bujo Head Jody here. I have been bullet journaling since 2017, and I would like to share my 2021 August weekly spreads with you. So, if you have seen any of my previous weeklies, you will know that I am pretty locked in, for right now at least, into a pretty great spread I've really been enjoying and using well, and it's working for me, that is the point of the bullet journal, is to work for you. So I'm sticking with it for now. I recommend it. It's definitely, very list based and very much helps you get all of your tasks out of your head. Because I like to start my weeks on a Monday, I have one Sunday that I have here. This is my weekly spread of a one day. So the first big section here is a brain dump, which is helpful, is good. I really like having like a big note section to work with. And then actually it's really funny. I thought about this for a little while, and I've got like a little, weekly list that I use that I like to put together. And so I usually write out the dates from and to, but there's only one date. So I wrote week 01 to 01 because it's true. So, yeah, that's how I resolve that. Tell me what you do. I threw down a little bit of a drop shadow there. And then we're going to color in this background. I'm using this pre-made mild liner. This pre-made mild liner color set, which is this dark gray, a very nice and vibrant blue, and then, as you'll see soon, yellow, an orange, and a red. And I'm using the dark gray as a drop shadow, and then the blue as sort of the impression of the ocean or the sea or something, and then the yellow and orange, and then eventually red, sort of, again, an impression of a sunset. I think it came out really nice. Looks really good. And we're just doing sort of the background here. So we're just doing I don't know, it was nice to color all this in, it was a nice little coloring activity. So we got our orange here. And then we're gonna throw down some red at the very, very top. And it looks so good. I'm gonna throw in some details with my white jelly roll. Some waves in the ocean, and then some evening stars in the sky. And that's it. That's sort of the blueprint that we're going with. So then for the rest of the full weeks, we have the two, giant sections on each side. We are doing sharp corners. A lot of times I'll do rounded corners. Just really I like that look. But we're mixing up a little bit, so we're gonna do the sharp corners. And then I have a very dark gray fine liner for the inner sort of details of this sectioning out the different days. It does look just like black, like the black that I'm using for the outline. You can tell the difference just looking up close, but I acknowledge that I maybe should have gone for a lighter gray. I'm not sure actually. I do like how stark it is. But yet still distinguishable from the black. So then each day has the date. And then I've actually, this month, we're writing out the full name of the day, the weekday name. Sometimes I'll do different abbreviations, or even just the first initial. So it all just sort of depends on how I'm feeling. I felt like it was a lowercase full name kind of month, so yeah, now we're on to the coloring portion of this spread. So we have our beautiful blue. As you can see, I'm going all the way to the edge of this page. So now if you look at if you look at my bullet journal as a whole from the side, you can actually see this whole month. You can see the blue and the yellow and the orange and red from the side, which is very interesting. I have so I usually use the little flags. I'll make flags out of the washi tape to denote the month. But I have actually thought about doing just coloring the edges of every month. I thought that was an interesting way to do that, and definitely this month is very distinct in the bullet journal now. So just a heads up for anyone doing something like this, it will definitely be visible. So whether that's a good thing or something you want to avoid, it's good to know. I'm one that likes to do experimentation, so it's definitely having a bullet journal that's not all on one big theme that's not my goal. So having something that stands out like that is very on brand for me. So yeah, the first full week, we're gonna put in our little wave details, and then a couple evening stars. I say stars, I know for a fact. Yeah, and then the next month, next week, same as the last week. I do like having this much space for each of these weeks. There's some weeks I don't use all of it, obviously, like, I'm tired or I'm just not doing anything. But sometimes I really need that space. I really need the full list of things that I'm doing. So in general, you'll notice, so these are sectioning out the days right here. And then I will highlight the day of the week and the date, and then there's the bottom section here. So the bottom section is I always write down the best thing, the worst thing, and then the thing I'm looking forward to. And it's always in that order. Sometimes I color code it, sometimes I don't. For this, I'm just basing it on the order. You will notice that I don't have those 3 sections in the very first column. That column is my weekly column. So that is where all of sort of I collect like tasks that I don't have a specific day that I know I need to do this on, which is generally most of my tasks. I'm just like, oh, I think of a thing I need to do, and like, okay, like it won't kill me if I don't do it today or tomorrow. It's just like something I need to remember to do at some point. So I will keep that in the weekly list, and then whenever I do it or whenever I want to do it, I will assign it to a day and move it over. So last month, I actually had these 3 bottom sections, and I included them in the weekly column, which is not right because I don't do a weekly best thing, worst thing I'm looking forward to. I probably could, but because I like to have it at the beginning of the week, it doesn't make sense because I like to do that last. I like to think about, what I did all day, at least for my daily ones. So if I wanted to do a weekly best thing, worst thing I'm looking forward to, I would want to have those sections at the end of the month, whereas this column is always the beginning of the month. So therefore, I had these sort of blocked out sections that I was like, oh, I don't really want to use this. I did end up just like writing a little like smiley face and frowny face, like indicate, oh, these are this type of section. This is sort of a label. But that was not intentional and was something that this month I avoided. So, yeah. Another thing you will notice if you have seen any of my previous weeklies, I will be having a habits section at the very top. I did not block this out because I'm not entirely sure which habits I want to keep from July and which ones I don't, or which ones I want to reintroduce or keep track of and all that kind of thing. So I haven't blocked those out. I may or may not do that. I may actually do that by the week, if I want to change that up. So I've kind of left that just freeform for now. So that is why there are only the bottom sections. But generally I do like to break up sort of my daily / weekly / anything repeating habits versus my sort of one-time tasks that I want to do. So we'll see whether or not I block those off or not. probably will, and we'll also see if I decide to sort of like predetermine my habits for the month, or if I want to do that weekly. I'm kind of leaning towards weekly right now. I do really like that concept, and because I'm just using that one dark gray fine liner to block out the bottom sections, which are the best thing, worst thing I'm looking forward to section. It would be super easy to just be like, okay, I'm doing 7 habits this week, and so I will, block out 7 lines just for that week. So I think that will be the plan. Obviously, we're not there yet, but it's always nice to think of it beforehand. So I definitely am proud of myself that I did not go over on any of those bottom sections on the weekly list there, the weekly column. I was a little worried that I would do that, just because I was doing it pretty fast, and it was definitely, the coloring takes a little bit of time, but like the actual setting up the columns and the little bottom sections is really fast, and like all the sort of sections were all very consistent. It's all exactly the same. If you'll actually notice, I just do a little bit of erasing. If you're here for the erasing, this is not the month for it, because I basically have to be like, hey, these are the dates that are going to be in this week. Everything else was very simple. It's 6 across, because of the way the page is set up. You just have to be 1 block over on the right side and the left side for each side of the page, and then top to bottom, and then sort of the sections were all exactly the same, and there weren't that many of them to do, so it was all drawn out, and you just color in the rest of it. And I definitely got into a groove with these, which you can see me regretting now because I messed up on that. I just totally threw a blue streak in there. I got very aggressive with that center line, but yeah, it was definitely, I was in a groove. I was in this coloring kind of this feel. It was really nice, very simple colors. I was also using, just to get the height of the blue right there, I was just following it across with my finger. I wasn't counting anything, or nothing had to be super precise, because it was all this background color, and so and it was all just to give the impression of a sunset over the water, so it didn't have to be absolutely perfect, and even with all the lines, they just needed to be within 1 square, and so therefore they didn't need to be super precise. It could all be very hand drawn. You do notice I flip the page around, just to sort of get, because a lot of the lines are close to the edge, and so it's just easier to do it in a certain position. But that's not, I'm not using a ruler, and it's not to make sure that the lines are going exactly the direction they're going in. And that is one suggestion I would make, that if you are trying to make very straight lines without having to use a ruler, would be to always draw your lines towards yourself. And so you want to spin your bullet journal so that you're only pulling straight lines towards yourself. You're not going across. But that was not super necessary for me this month. Because we were just, it's all just going to be lists. And the main sort of like attraction or pop is the background color. And I do have recommendations for if you want to do this, but you also want something a lot more crisp and a lot more, I don't know, just not professional, but just like, precise looking. I have in the past used painter's tape, and it's worked out really well. It makes very precise lines, especially if you're, coloring over with marker. And yeah, it looks really good. But if you don't need it to be super precise, I would not bother, because it's kind of a pain in the butt. And it takes a very long time, and for something like this, so this month I had an extra weekly spread, just because I like to start my weeks on a Monday, and so I had one extra Sunday, which means that then the end of the month bled over into a Monday, Tuesday. So instead of having, 5 full spreads, I had 6. So it was definitely a little bit more effort. Obviously these spreads are much simpler than some that I have done in the past, but at the same time, there's a bunch of coloring going on. I gotta make sure all the sections are the right number of spaces. I definitely missed a drop shadow until the very last second at one point, so but especially by this time you can tell I've gotten into a groove. We're getting the color on there, being very bold with our strokes. And it looks good, So I am using, so these mild liners have the dual tips. So we have the sort of regular one on one side, and then we have a chisel tip on the other. So I'm using the chisel tip for most of these, mostly because it's wider, but also for that center fold, it was a lot easier to sort of like spin it around and sort of color vertically, if you know what I mean. So just to get in that groove there, so that the entire background was filled with color. It also helped with, so on these pages where it's the full week, because of how the spacing went, they have to be one space from each side. So there was a lot of space in between the two halves of the week. But as you'll see in the next month, or the next week, not the next month, the next week, when I had a slightly different week, like with this, there was a large brain dump section that was a lot closer to the weekly section. I could actually turn the chisel tip sort of like 45-degree angle, and it would fit, and I could color in between those lines with a lot more precision, and a lot more reliably. So definitely, if you're coloring in, filling in background, chisel tip all the way. So we've got this big brain dump section here, which I'm basically just filling space. Pretty sure I won't be using all of it. I might, who knows? I might find something to do with it. But for the most part, it's just, extra note section, because I like to keep my weeklies in their place. So we have our final drop shadows in this dark gray. Final blue section. I'm being very careful because I did put this sort of extra outline for the brain dump, which I had used previously for some of the big headers in the monthly spreads. So I had to make sure that I was coloring in what was the actual background, and not just the sort of decorative little border to the brain dump. So our final yellow section, following across just with my finger. I didn't plan out these sort of like how far up it went. It was just kind of by feel. I was also following previous pages. So they do all line up for the entire month. And our last reds. We are in the home stretch. Just our finishing touches with that white jelly roll. Some waves, some stars, and those are our weekly spreads. Ready to go? And looking great. Thanks. Bye.